Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tigers Minor League Report podcast here at TigersHomeReport.com. I'm Rolly Castillo. Alongside me is Brandon Day. Are you drinking? Is that water, Brandon?
No, that's a Moscow Mule.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see the fancy brass cup with that, so I was
No, I'm moving into the detox, the early detox phase of the postseason, where I've got to stop drinking beer and get off everything and get cleaned up, get back
okay.
to the gym, start working it out after 65 hours a week for the last, I don't know, God, 7 months. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I
Getting,
I am
getting a
too.
little, getting a little chubby,
Yeah,
the beer weight.
I lost. I was down to 280, and then I gained like 7 pounds back. So I'm trying to get back down to get back to where I was at before. But before we get to everything, I just wanted to thank everybody for the. I felt like I had a vent today a little bit about like just not Chris and I not getting that email because we usually get an email like, hey, go to the presser. We went last year. We will talk to Harris, and there's that picture of me talking that Brad Galley got from Channel 7, me going with my hair curls like this, like talking to Scott Harris about Hayu Lee. But it is what it is, and the Tigers apologized, but it was still like I don't know. It's just frustrating because we we fight tooth and nail to get even Baseball Writers Association filled me. They're supposed to give me press passes,
Mm.
and I got them. I was supposed to get them the day of, and I went through a whole rigmarole, and they were supposed to mail them to me, and never happened.
Yeah,
There
I
was,
didn't. I didn't. I didn't get postseason credentials this year. Second year in a row.
huh?
So
Interesting, considering how much you've done to, kind of shine light on the farm system, especially. That's kind of lame.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know how
No,
much of it is the Tigers, how much of it is an oversight, how much of it is
could just be an
Major
oversight.
League Baseball. We're an independent outlet, right? So like they might not be putting out a lot of spots for us, but Roger was able to get down there for the playoffs, so that was good. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't have been able to go to the presser. I might have been able to, but because I took today off, but. Yeah, I don't know. It was still interesting to watch and
yeah,
hear their thoughts on the season for sure because I think that it kind of aligned with a lot with what fans believed. At least part of it did.
yeah.
Fans are always going to find a way to be mad about what they say, but I thought them acknowledging the failings down the stretch I think was pretty big.
yeah. They really were just kind of like just especially because there's just a part right here where I'm be playing clips here and there from the presser. We're gonna be definitely talking about Game 5 too because Seattle right now looks like a bunch of world beaters. All of a sudden they beat Toronto 10-3 today. They're up. Series is up 2-0, and Jorge Polanco is doing more Jorge Polanco. I'm a former Twin. I'm gonna annoy the hell out of you stuff.
Yeah.
And but
It was a bold strategy to go get like two of the most annoying AL Central players in recent history and deploy them against us.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, no, and the Mariners are making the Tigers look good. Completely agree. Here's this is some this was Harris talking about the off-season plans.
Offer a lot of money. And sometimes that means we're going to go into a winter and focus on more targeted needs. I don't know exactly what this winter is going to be. We have several weeks to devise our strategy and start executing on it. But since the day I've been here, I've been trying to win a World Series. And I think it's important to not lose perspective here. I was sitting in this building 3 years ago. I was on a stage and we were talking about a struggling major league team. We were talking about the 30th ranked farm system, and we were talking about an organization that hadn't been to the playoffs in a long time. Now, 3 years later, we're talking about back-to-back postseason appearances. We're talking about the number one farm system in baseball, and we're talking about a young core there that's just entering their prime, continuing to get better. I think the trend line in this organization is really important, and how we've done it is really important. We have been focused on a path of development, of getting more out of our players and supplementing our players with external additions that can help us get even better. That part's not going to change. We're going to stay on the development track. And what excites me is we've done all of that without a single draft pick of the last 3 years getting to the big leagues.
All right, so right there is something that I wanted to point out right there.
We're entering a new era.
Well, that's not what I wanted to do either. So I'm going to try to get back to this. Okay, so
And we're entering a new era every year. It's amazing. It's great.
but he points out, and I felt like he was talking to the fans right there. Like, look, guys, look where we were 3 years ago, and he is right. Like, perspective is key here. And I was talking to Tony Paul because Tony invited me on his pod to talk about the minor, because there was a lot of minor league talk today, which is fitting. Again, that's why I was kind of irritated. I'm like, the one time it's right in our damn wheelhouse, and we don't get there. That was the part when this is me at work today. I was like, okay, oh, the presser. Oh, all right. I'll start listening to work. I'm like, motherfucker. I'm gonna ask that question. I'm gonna ask that question. I'm gonna but
Tranquility now.
Tranquility now. It's
like Troy Melton in the dugout.
Yeah.
Flow like water, my friends.
Flow like water. He loves the minor leagues as much as I do. Troy Melton does. Troy Melton, man of the people. But no, but I thought the way he addressed some of these things was direct. He took the heat, and people can give Harris all the grief all he wants about that, but I thought he handled that between him and Hinch pretty well. The Scooble stuff too was like, and then Buster only saying, "Oh, he can answer stuff about Scooble."
He can do whatever he wants, and I will say that Scott Harris tends to frame the fact that he won't give out any information as just like, oh, company policy. It's like you run the company, bro. But all right.
Well, yeah, I mean, he said that the way that I say to Harrison, we can't buy a PlayStation 5. We can. Yeah. We're not gonna. We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna. And if we are, we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be a surprise. Yeah. We're not gonna talk about it and then not do it because that's gonna make everybody angry. Yeah. I mean, there are certain things that you're not allowed to talk about. It's in the CBA. You can't talk about free agents in a certain way.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you can talk about arbitration eligible players. You can talk about trades if you want. I don't think you're going to say, like, hey, we're going to go look for that guy, because it doesn't benefit you in any way to say, yeah, we're looking to trade this player or we're looking to trade for that player. Like nobody ever says that. You could say more, but he's not going to say more. Like, I don't know. It is one of those funny things where people are like, yeah, Scooble's gone for sure. And like, we kind of already knew that, but it's like, there's nothing he was going to say today, unless short of announcing that they had signed Scooble, that was going to change anybody's mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's more a matter of like, he could address these things in a general way more if he wanted to, but yes, he can't specifically like talk players. He can't talk like, oh, we're negotiating this. He's not going to get into that stuff. And that's, that's totally understandable. I think that the best thing that Harris and Hinch did today is like, let themselves be a little bit raw about it. And, let everyone kind of see in like, look, we cared every bit as much as you guys do. We're the ones, in there, like grinding it out, trying to figure out how to turn this team around in September. Like kind of acknowledging that, what a disaster that was and how hard it was to watch, kind of helps his case. I mean, it's not like I think Scott Harris doesn't care about winning or anything like that. People can kind of pin that sort of thing on Chris Ilitch and the Ilitch family a little bit, like, oh, well, they don't care enough to spend enough money and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Although I would point out again that, we spent almost as much as the Mariners and a lot more than, Cleveland, a lot more than Milwaukee. There are ways to do that. I mean, if you guys had been there, I mean, the question I had, and I was sitting there kind of making my list of like specific questions I would want to ask, is that, look, you had, $50 million on your payroll, basically a third of your payroll tied up in Alex Cobb, Tommy Kahnle, John Brebbia, Charlie Morton, Chris Paddock. You can't blow a third of your payroll when you're not the Yankees or the Dodgers. How are you going to go about this and try to do better next year when, you don't have the payroll flexibility of those top teams? That would have been like a pointed question I would have liked to have seen asked a little bit. And they, and the way they kind of went about it, they sort of addressed some things early on, at least tangentially, that sort of, I feel like, diffused maybe some of the tougher questions that could come out, because they talked about, some of those things at least a little bit. It was interesting to see AJ Hinch go into a whole, litany about bat path, because I've been explaining to people, who, maybe haven't paid that much attention to baseball, since they were a kid or, since they were in high school, that, bat path is not flat and, blah, 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 the whole spiel. Riley Green hasn't changed his swing. It's the same Riley Green who was good, that is struggling here. And I mean, I think if you look at, the results for a lot of their top hitters down the stretch, the problem was that they stopped controlling the strike zone. Even Torkelson was chasing like crazy. I mean, when you go through a postseason series or two postseason series, and your 3-4 hitter Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green are putting up like 65 WRC pluses between the two of them. That's hard to overcome, and they did. They almost overcame it. So there were points there that were interesting. I mean, obviously, I think there's a case to be made that both Torkelson and Green were dipping a little bit too much. They were certainly probably getting too steep. Maybe that's a little bit of fatigue and something they just have to like focus on. Keeping an eye on themselves with down the stretch. But it sounded like they were all aware. Like they were made aware that that's what part of their problem was. That they were expanding the zone. They were dropping their back shoulder a little too hard and trying to launch everything sky high. And they just couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't come out of it. But that's not terribly comforting going into an off season where you're also kind of hearing, well, some off seasons we're going to make a big offer to someone, and some off seasons are just going to be about, development and filling in the cracks. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really say I came away like necessarily comforted in any way or with any change to like how I expect things to go. But I do think it was wise of them at least to characterize kind of like the whole last like 3 years since Harris has been here, because there was a lot of new fans that kind of signed up, over the last year. And for them, it's like, oh, we were promised a World Series. And it's like, well, it is a process.
Right.
It doesn't just happen. Like they weren't supposed to make it last year. Nobody, they didn't do very much in 2024 to make the team better. They signed Jack Flaherty and, Mark Canha. Like they didn't do a whole lot. And so that was kind of a surprise that they got in. And then this year we saw kind of what they could do for 3 or 4 months. But then they stopped doing it. But when the chips were down, they managed and pitched their way, to outscoring the Seattle Mariners, who are trucking the Blue Jays as we speak.
Yeah.
I mean, they had every chance to win. I mean, yeah, maybe he should have used Brant Herter in the 15th, but you're not planning for that, and the difference between Brant Herter, Tommy Kahnle, and Rafael Montero in that situation is meager. You had ample chances for someone to hit one freaking single and put you up and shut the thing down, and they just couldn't get it done. So there, you could pick it all apart. Tarek Skubal, could he have gone 7? Well, he didn't seem to fight for 7, and that's kind of how that goes. You plan that out, and if your starting pitcher is like adamant, like, no, I've got it, I need another inning, then yeah, maybe you keep him in. But, it was like Eugenio Suarez coming up, Polanco and Julio Rodriguez, 3 guys who are going to hit right-handed and all have power. That's kind of the spot when you take Skubal out. He's at 100 pitches. He's got 3 good right-handed hitters with power coming up. Polanco has obviously had his number a little bit. You go to Kyle Finnegan there, and if you're, if your second and third best reliever can't get you 1 inning to get to Will Vest, well, there's not a lot of managers going to do about that. Shout out to Will Vest, though, for just being God tier. Will Vest stepped up, is probably one of the top 10 relievers in baseball this year.
Yeah.
And kind of capped that with a brilliant postseason. Troy Melton, obviously, had one bad outing in the postseason, but for a rookie, I mean, they depended on him. He was kind of the difference maker that sort of equalized the fact that, they had 3 better starting pitchers if you took them all as a group than we do with Flaherty and Mize. So, there's a lot of different ways you could kind of break it down, but in a 15 inning game, it just came down to somebody's got to score. And if there was something they could have done to make that game go differently, it was probably, finishing second in the American League and not absolutely cratering over the last 2 months and having home field advantage. Because it's tough to win on the road in general. It's tough to win in the postseason on the road. It's tough to win elimination games on the road. So, it kind of is what it is. They had a year that sort of felt like they spun their wheels in a lot of different ways. There was a few nice developments, but you're also a year closer to Skubal departing. Riley Green struggling that much, like more than Riley Green has probably ever struggled in his entire life since he was like 10. And all the grown dudes were like, oh shit, this kid mad. Certain things you just can't do very much about if your best players just kind of crumble at the end.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that what I noticed about that game is that it was the same thing that continued to plague the Tigers, which is they played tight the entire time. And Parker Meadows, there was like this talk about they're replacing Parker Meadows. These fans are getting a little crazy about that too. It's like, the guy was overwhelmed the entire series. I mean, coming back healthy. But but the overwhelming thing about the press conference, we'll get more in the press conference too when we have you'll have you Bron here in a few minutes, is that he basically has said, look, we're gonna get the minor leagues are gonna be taken over here, and he is very and I don't think that's gonna solve everything either, and I think that we're gonna see McGonigal here up here. We're gonna probably see Clark, maybe perhaps start the season. I'm not really sure, but Chris, I mean, what was your? Let's start with you in terms of your Game 5 takeaways. I mean, it was just they just couldn't. It was 0 for 21 from the top of the order or something like that.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, Kerry Carpenter was a monster, and then
Yeah.
everybody else was like, I gave it a try. Um, and that was the funniest point in the press conference when Hinch was like, we tell these guys they need to hit that pitch. They're like, yeah, no shit. The one that's in the zone, and that was Hinch. I think Brandon touched on that earlier. Like that, the big thing is swinging at the right pitches, which they still need to work on quite a bit. And in that game, and I feel dumb for not noticing it until I think Mike Petriello pointed it out. But Seattle just like, we're just going to throw you nothing but sliders.
Yeah.
And the Tigers had no answer for that, which is frustrating because you would think they would either realize it's happening to them or, game plan for that or pinch hit. AJ Hinch didn't use any pinch hitters, I don't think, in 15 innings, which is stunning.
Yeah.
And it just it was like, man, I didn't think it would be that easy. Now the Mariners have an excellent pitching staff. They're a very good team, and they had to execute those pitches. And they weren't all perfect. The Tigers had chances. It's just, you think about when Javi hit that, when he had men on third and Javi hit the ball to third base, and that ball's in a different location just a little bit. You score the run, and maybe you win. It's just some of those frustrating things with baseball. But the most frustrating thing, of course, is the continued strikeouts with men on base, and that's what Harris talked about. He said there's too much swing and miss. They need to put the ball in play. I don't what he kept saying, push the ball. I don't know exactly what they always use, like these interesting terms.
He did throw us a little grist for the mill by talking about how they needed to go opposite field more, and they got too pull happy.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting to hear him kind of basically. Not admit, but say what we've been saying for a long time about these players that they've been drafting is that they're really targeting athletic up the middle defenders who can put the bat on the ball. That's like everybody they've drafted. Mm-hmm. You can quibble over someone like Max Anderson and saying that he's like, he's not super athletic, or Carson Rucker or whatever, but like, McGonigal, Clark, Peck, the kids they drafted this year who I've already forgotten because
Yost. I mean, that's like who Yost is, and I mean Anderson doesn't strike out. Like, he doesn't control the zone very well because he puts the bat on the ball.
He puts the bat on the ball. So I think there is a point to that. I think he's right to say that like the problems that are ailing this team right now, some of the problems are going to be fixed by the guys coming up, sort of. But you can't count on all those guys, and you've got these guys now. You got to figure out how to make these guys better, and I think they're working on that. But I don't know how much better you can get. But I would also say that like I keep seeing people talk about like, we got to blow it up now. I'm like, really? Like this is a super young team still. Like aside from Baez, like even Glaber was what 27, 28.
Yeah.
Like they're all in their early to mid 20s for the most part. Dingler, Meadows, Keith, Green, Torkelson, Carpenter. The 84 Tigers, all the key pieces of that team, they didn't all have great seasons leading up to that. They all had they were good, and then they would have a down year because they're young players. It happens. So I'm not to say that you need to bring the exact same team back, but I don't think you necessarily blow up this core unless you get, kind of a crazy offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at history, you talk about that. That's a good point, Chris, about so you look at the 1983 Tigers, for example, they ran into a buzzsaw that was known as the Baltimore Orioles. They won 92 games, and they finished second because back then, of course, it was only the division winner. Baltimore won 98 games. The Yankees were 91 game winners too. But it was the Tigers that year. It was kind of remembered to me as like they were still in a period of transition of like having their young guys. Trammell's just turning 25, Whitaker's at that age, and they still have like they had Enos Cabell at first base. So they had some serious like questions of what they were going to do. And I think this team is kind of somewhat in the same predicament with a young core of players. I mean, Kirk Gibson around the same age too, and
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
yeah,
All those guys drafted in like what 77 to 79, basically.
yeah.
and Gibby didn't do anything until like he did some stuff, but he didn't have his breakout until he was like 27. You could if you want to draw parallels, he's kind of the Parker Meadows, right? Like
Yeah.
he's got this incredible physical tool set. He just hadn't put it all together, and then he
Mhm.
finally did in '84. And then after that, he was a really good player. But it was like sometimes. And this is the job of the front office is to look at these guys and say, we can wait on this guy. He's going to get much better. He's going to get significantally better, or this is probably as good as it gets. We need to move him. And they're going to have to do some of that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much that's going to happen this offseason, though.
Speaking of the development, though, by the way, every time I pause this video, you look at Harris's face. Look at Harris's face when you see this. Look how pissed he looks. He looks so exhausted. Like, man, this fucker Jeff Rieger's gonna ask me another question. I'm gonna get pissed. I mean, he looks like he's brooding, but I mean, he's in the middle of answering, and Hinch is like, "Are you gonna be okay, son? Are you gonna be okay?"
In fairness, that's that's right. That's Jeff's wheelhouse.
Yeah. Here it is.
Very intentional about targeting at bat quality and bat to ball skills. I think as these players start to get to the big leagues, it's going to nudge our big league team towards more contact and better approaches. And it's also going to improve our defense because most of our players in the minor leagues are actually two-way players that can be assets on both sides of the ball. They can be impact defenders, and they can also swing at the right pitches and make a ton of contact at the plate.
Well, I mean, there are
There are a few of them. There are a few of them.
Well, we talked about McGonigal and Clark work long at bats. Briseño works long at bats. They Clark's a lot of it is just kind of not swinging. McGonigal swings very aggressively, pitches in the zone. But someone like Peck, he swings a lot. He doesn't necessarily chase all that much. He does swing, but he hits a lot of balls hard. And not that I'm saying that John Peck is going to be a key piece of the future, but that's kind of even their sort of role player types are fit this mold to some degree. I mean, there's a reason Peck was like a seventh rounder. There's some holes in the swing there, but I think that I like what their process there. Whether it actually works out at the big league level still remains to be seen.
I mean, there's a lot in general to be like positive about with the farm system and kind of where the roster is. But of course, it's ARB time now for Riley and for Torque and those guys. They're going to start getting more expensive. And there's no answer for losing Tarek Skubal.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, Harris has repeatedly said, like, I don't believe in windows. I don't think about it. But he did acknowledge that, like, there's not much we can do about about that, or at least like it kind of vaguely indicated, like, I mean, some things we're not going to be able to replace, I guess we're going to replace them in the aggregate. But, I mean, that's the issue that brings me right back to, like, I mean, everything he's saying is just, I should have signed Alex Bregman. I'm a dumbass. I'm sorry, guys. Brandon Day from Bless You Boys. You harped on it all off season and just dogged me. And I was so mad, but all right, fine. I should have signed Alex Bregman. That's the guy I mean, for all these very reasons, like that's the type of player that this team needs for a little more balance. And Kevin McGonigal has a very good chance to be exactly that type of hitter. And, I mean, Max Clark has his strengths, his weaknesses, but, he controls the zone decently well. And like you were saying, Briseño, Max Anderson, if he could learn to control the zone a little more and swing a little bit less and swing it more at pitches that he could pull in the air, he's got a chance to break through. This all makes me want to lead right into the talk about like why they didn't trade certain people, because some of that did irritate me.
Yeah. So that we'll get to that here in a second. So we'll bring Uper on for that portion because I didn't want to spotlight him that, but
Hey,
no, but it's because the trade part of it was the way he alluded to Suarez was pretty like clear that Suarez was the guy they were talking about. Which was the other trade portion of it. That was like halfway through, right? Like that was.
Yeah, I mean.
So here's by the way, I do have another portion from the press conference. This is Hinch talking about what they can do to do better.
You're not going to be naive and think that we're going to run it back and do this again. Like one of the reasons I had such a hard time at the podium after Game 5 is that it's hard to get to where we're at. it's hard to get to run the whole race and get through the season and have 87 wins be disappointing. Like that's hard, to have a series win in the wild card. Like we're not going to think it's not good enough. We won the series and against a really good team, and then we get to 15 innings, one more run or one more pitch or one more defensive play, and it feels like we would be, reviewing game one decisions and game one, offense, defense, base running, things like that, and instead we're sitting at this podium. So it's,
Well, look, I mean, like this is like like come on. I mean, you got to give that up to be like, you know what? I don't really want to be here. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's like,
Oh,
he'd
yeah.
rather be in Toronto right now. And I give Hinch all the props in the world for saying those kind of things. And look, he's right. It is hard to get where they were at, especially with this roster towards the end of the year. Hinch, the extension is great. It makes a lot of sense because he turned chicken salad. He turned chicken
Yeah,
crab.
yeah,
into
we
chicken
know.
salad. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain level, this is still like a 500-ish team, maybe slightly better, that has Tarek Skubal added on top of that, and AJ Hinch maybe stealing you a win or two during the year. I mean, it's not a monster roster, and at the same time, they took the Mariners to the brink. I don't know that pinch hitting Jemai Jones against a right-hander was going to change anything. It probably didn't help that Riley was struggling so much, so there was never any point where Dan Wilson thought to himself, I've got to get that Ferguson back in this thing. I mean, the way those things play out, the only quibble I had was like, maybe Wenzel should have had an at bat for Parker somewhere along the way. I know you want the defense, but it is what it is. Do I think Wenzel Perez was about to be the hero? I mean, maybe, but those are very slender margins to base a huge amount of criticism on the manager for, I would say.
I think I was talking to you about this, Raj, the other day, but it would be nice if the Tigers would come out on the right end of one of these all-time epic,
Yeah.
end of year games. Like that was, it felt in a lot of ways, it was like a less offensive version of the Twins game, the game 163 back in the day, including like that whole game. I'm like, when will Leland pinch hit Avila? I think it was Avila, wasn't it? It was a young Avila, I think, who had just come up, and it was like Brandon Lair or Gerald Lair was getting like his 7th plate appearance, and it was like, put it on Avila. But it was kind of stunning to me that they never. But to Dan Wilson's credit, they were just not going to use their lesser, left-handed relievers or any of their lesser relievers. Yeah. So that kind of took away the advantage of bringing in Jemai Jones or whatever. But
and they could have gone all night. I mean, Luis Castillo was on regular rest. Like he could have pitched another 6 innings. I mean, could have just gone out and out. I don't know.
And that's the benefit of winning the division and finishing top 2 in the record, right? So you don't have to play in the wild card series and all that stuff.
They didn't even have Brian Wu.
Yeah, and that's
true.
And their offense is just going bonkers now against Toronto, which I did not see coming. It does make you think, wow, the Tigers maybe did a really good job with their pitching. But sometimes, these things happen in baseball. It's you get into the postseason and teams get randomly hot. Certain players just go bonkers out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, as you mentioned, when are they going to win one of these kind of games? I always call them fan scars, It's like a scar you get in your soul. Do you remember these games forever? And that's actually part of the lure of baseball, right? It's not a terrible thing. I mean, it's a crappy memory, but it's also a great memory. That was an outstanding night of baseball. But yeah, game 163, the Poppy Grand Slam. I mean, those are right in there with this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks, but it is more memorable when they're absolutely heartbreaking, right? Like, I don't know if we all have really strong memories of, was it Game 6 of the 2011 ALCS? Rangers. Yeah, I think Scherzer, they gave up like 9 runs or something like that, and it was just a blowout.
Nelson Cruz, man.
Yeah, we just kind of have vague memories of getting smoked by Nelson Cruz and Ryan Perry giving up their grand slam at some point. But like, I don't remember that game like it was yesterday, like I do game with 163 and the damn Boston game and this game, which sucks. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, this is a historic event, and it's kind of cool to be watching this in real time.
Well, and the cool thing is, when you think about it, we have those memories. We went 20 years without a game even close to being important enough to care.
Yeah.
From
Okay.
basically 1988 through 2005, you know.
Yeah.
So there is that.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since the Tigers were. I mean, obviously, okay, it's the wild card era and the divisional round era
Yeah.
and all that, but it's been a very long time since the Tigers won, postseason series in back-to-back years. So, I mean, there's some progress there, but of course, like we said when the beginning of the rebuild, like getting to here is kind of the easier part. I mean, this is the part where drafting high and all that gets you back to this point. It's
Yeah.
taking that next step that is the really hard part. So.
Yeah. Really good.
You saw
Sorry,
a lot
also-
of people talking about pulling Scooble. Did we have any problems with that? Early?
Not really. I mean, I just thought that if Tarek Scuba really had more to give, he would have fought for it a little bit and kind of pushed AJ like, no, I got another one.
Mhm.
And if you look at who was coming up, again, it was Suarez, it was J-Rod, and it was Polanco. And Polanco hitting right-handed obviously had success against Scooble. Got 3 right-handers in a row, basically. I mean, that's Finnegan's spot. I mean, I could complain that, hey, Tarek Scuba should, be able to throw 115. JV did it, and some other guys have done it. Roger Clemens, going deep, and Jack Morris and whoever. But those guys aren't throwing 98 to 101 the entire freaking game either. It is a different time.
And I more or less agree with you down the road there. I mean, first off, I would agree with some people if they want to say a diminished Tarek Skubal is still better than a full strength Kyle Finnegan. You can make that argument, and there's you can agree with that possibly, but with Polanco coming up, I mean, Skubal easily could have given up a run there. That wouldn't have been too shocking.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I also wonder, let's say he had come out and he had put a 0 up and then he was done after 7. Do they go with Vest for 2 innings, or would the 8th inning have become Finnegan's inning? And would he have allowed a run then? I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's so many ways that would have gone. I just don't think that you could say, well, everything would have fell into place if Skubal pitches the 7th. I think there's a lot of different ways to go there.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been the back end of their order that Finnegan, I think, would have faced in the 8th, basically. I mean, so you could kind of make, I guess, that argument. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't do you any good if Skubal goes out there and gives up a run or two. I mean, I think the easy thing for a manager to do there is to be like, look, I'm riding my ace into the ground. He didn't take an extension last year. He's not our problem in the future. I'm just
my job. Yeah.
And he did, I don't know if it's to his credit exactly, but he didn't do that. He made the decision that you would make with the bullpen that he had, and it just didn't work out.
I was a little bit shocked that Skubal didn't go back out, just because, like, if not now, when, right? Like, and he's been 90 to 100 pitches all year long. Like, that's fine, I get it. And he was, but it was a tough start for him in the sense that Seattle just kept making him throw a ton of pitches. He kept striking them out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like he was rarely getting like a quick ground ball out or fly out or anything like that. But even, I was just looking. Tarek Skubal, back-to-back Cy Young winner, amazing pitcher. Even him, 3rd time through the order. He's 179 the first time through the order, ERA. 149 the second time through the order. 3rd time, 408.
Yeah.
Tarek Skubal, best pitcher on the planet, 408 ERA the 3rd time through the order. You're pushing your luck at some point. So, even with the best pitcher on the planet, these hitters are incredibly good, and they gave up that run because Finnegan walked a guy. That's 100% it. And then and because Holton hung a changeup, he didn't. I don't even know who hung it, but he just didn't locate it to the edges like he needs to, which is kind of what we saw at times from Holton during the year, and it's just unfortunate. But
so would a tiring Skubal have been able to shut down that inning versus those 2 relievers giving up a walk single sequence? If nothing else, I was wondering if they could have went batter by batter with Skubal.
You'd think so. The run Skubal gave up was incredibly frustrating too, of course, because Naylor just reaches out and pokes a ball 300 feet and then steals third base.
Yeah,
what a pest! Just a Cleveland Guardian forever. I don't care what uniform
on the podcast that maybe he couldn't hear anybody telling him to step off.
Yeah,
I never heard if Dingler had flashed him a step off sign and he missed it or they didn't get it. I don't know.
I never saw any commentary about that from anybody on the team. Yeah, I'm not sure either. It is an interesting question because I mean, Naylor is a talented base stealer in his way, but he's not fast. So yeah, you would think they could have got him. You would think Scooble could have thrown the pitch and they still could have got him. But
I mean, we had 30 odd bases, stolen bases this year for that guy his size. I wanted to get to what Harris said about Melton here because I thought it was really a ringing endorsement.
How do you see his role moving forward?
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Troy Melton. I thought he pitched really well for us. He got really big outs for us, and he handled the transition from the rotation to the pen as seamlessly as any young player we have seen since I've been here. We moved him to the pen for two reasons. One, because we thought, it was a big need for us to add more swing and miss to our pen, and we had, a young player with high octane stuff that could pitch in a multi-inning role, as we've seen, get really big outs for us, and add a new dynamic to his pen so that when he looked down on the card, he had multiple paths to get to the finish line. The other reason why we focused more on the pen is due to innings concerns for him. He's a young pitcher. Injuries are so prevalent in our game. We have a duty to protect the players in our organization, and we try really hard to take that seriously. And so with the number of innings that Troy threw last year compared to the ones that he was on pace for this year, we didn't think it was fair or reasonable to just plug him into the rotation and start him every 5 days. And we didn't think we were going to get the best out of him in October if we just threw him into that role. So we chose to put him in the pen. And for a young pitcher with as little experience as he has, like, you can't ask for anything more than what Troy gave us in the postseason.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that because I thought it was especially with the way the rotation is next year. With the question about Scooble came up, of course, whether the Tigers are going to re-sign him or not. I know Stan had a question about 6 years or $35 million. He's going to shoot for the moon and the stars. This is a Scott Boras client. This guy's going to try to get 400,000 or 400 million, if not more.
Yeah.
So
I kind of don't think he will, but yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I don't know what they offered him last year. Boris's comments made it sound like it was almost insulting. But that's Scott Boras. He's always going to make it
that before.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that tells us anything at all about it, but Tarek Skubal bet on himself that he would stay healthy this year, and he's betting on himself that he's going to stay healthy next year. And there's no guarantees, that he will. I mean, the Tigers might be able to sign him for 5 years, 200 million. They'll never go for this, but but he might get injured, and then suddenly you're scrambling and trying to work it out. But they've made that bet. I don't know that he's gonna get 400 million, but even paying him 300 million, for his age 30 seasons on, I know harder throwing starting pitchers and the elite starting pitchers tend to stay good longer. Right? They pitch into their middle and late 30s more often than other guys do. But odds are, we're seeing the best you'll ever see out of Tarek Skubal the last year and this year. Maybe we'll see it again next year and the year after. But it's not going to go on and on like this. It's just not. I mean, Justin Verlander couldn't do it, and Tarek Skubal is not that. Not like the freakiest arm talent of all time. Sorry, Nolan. After Nolan Ryan, excuse me. But so I just think it's a foregone conclusion that he's gone. I mean, the question is whether it's better to try to leverage him in trade or just keep him. And I would say just keep him, because I just don't see any team that has like a top 3 prospect. The Pirates aren't going to trade Connor Griffin for him. They don't have any. It'd be hilarious to see Skubal and Skeens 1-2. Holy crap!
Oh dear God!
But they're not going to do that. And the best teams that would want Skubal the most don't have the top prospects to get him. So I just don't really see that as a viable option right now. Maybe if it comes to the trade deadline next year, and you're not doing well, then yeah, maybe you take what you can get then. But the best thing they can do is try to beef up the offense a little bit. Beef up the bullpen in particular. Because one thing I would like to come back to in that game is the fact that Leo Rivas beat us.
Thank you.
Like, the move was okay. Well, I want to say Canzone, in for Mitch Garver against Finnegan. So Hinch rightly goes to Tyler Holton against a fairly dangerous left-handed hitter, and they bring in Leo Rivas, who's like a 28-year-old journeyman with no power, not even like a super good contact guy. And they throw cutter middle down, he takes it middle down again with a changeup in the exact same freaking spot. And Holton just made a bad pitch there. And it does kind of go back to the fact that at no point this season have they had a left-handed reliever in the bullpen who strikes guys out and that you can really depend on. And I know I harped on that a lot too. And we've talked about, Kulan and Matt Gage and Andrew Chafin and the whole works, but that was a flaw in the roster the whole season long, and they never solved it. And they looked bad trying for the most part. There's a lot of just fumbling that went
on
on.
the Detroit Tigers
Drew Summers
radio network.
Yeah, Drew Summers.
And fragile.
I don't have to do a game. Oh,
You fog.
Tell him, Dan.
You get tired.
fuck this game recap. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that out loud? 3, 2, 1.
That's one of the best. By the way, I had to play the unedited version because when you mentioned Leo Rivas, I was like, that's probably what Dan was thinking. Dan was thinking this entire time, like
We are also
he was probably thinking the entire time of the moment, like
and fragile.
I don't have to do a game. Oh,
You fog. You get tired.
fuck this game recap. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that out loud? 3.
That apology was very much not an apology. It's
yeah.
Did I say that out loud? That
sorry.
was a guy who's done like 5 hours of
Dan,
play-by-play,
we salute you.
Yeah.
and yeah.
I don't know how much of Dickerson you listened to the other night.
No.
I was out in the yard with a dog that's just moved into our house with my mother-in-law, and so I'm trying to. And she's not used to being on a leash or being outside on grass, so I was outside trying to get her to pee, so she didn't pee in the house, right? So I'm watching the game through the window of the house while listening to Dickerson, like everybody else was, right? And, and it was really. This was about the 12th inning, and you could just sense this frustration in Dan's voice. It was just growing and growing throughout the game. That's quite a job to have, to try to tell the story of that game, and you know how much he loves that team and what he wanted. It was. I can see why the frustration overwhelmed him with the post-game recap.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, and it was just exhausting because like they got out of jams repeatedly, and we did too. And like the Tigers getting out of some of those jams and extras, we're like, oh my god, they did it! I can't believe they pulled this escape act out, and we're gonna win. And then
it was something. It was something out of it was something out of a video game. And Montero, like, here's another guy that stepped up this year. Montero, yeah, you're right. Dan Dickerson did nothing wrong, 100%. So, by the way, anybody that says otherwise, sorry, we have a problem with you. No, but Kiner Montero had a really good postseason, and I thought he made a point to go, look, you picked up Chris Paddock, you could have had me the entire time.
Yeah.
That was his motivation, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something needs to be done about the review process. That was, when you're seeing completely impartial people be like, what in the hell, just like the hit by pitch that was the ball hit the bat, you see the ball change trajectory, you see it change spin, and they're like, it's hit by pitch. It's like,
you saw the bat vibrate too. The bat definitely vibrated.
Yeah.
And the ball switched directions in such a way that only could have been of a piece of wood.
Yeah.
And I believe if it hits his hand on the bat, it's considered a ball in play, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't your hand considered part of the bat?
Here's what happened there.
Okay.
Well, so what had happened was,
I don't think they would have said that he wasn't offering.
Okay.
Okay. I think they said he was trying to pull the bat back. Then it just would have been a foul ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
But either way, it was definitely not a hit by pitch.
Yeah.
And they reviewed it with slow motion, and they're like, yeah, I don't see anything. It was like, what in the world?
Couldn't believe it. New York
and just like, that. And I honestly don't think the Tigers came out on the right end of any reviews. And I'm not saying like that the league had something out for them or whatever. It was just like every time they did a review, it was like, oh, got him by a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Or I mean, we noticed this yesterday. The Chiefs got 0 penalties, 0 penalties, whatever penalties.
Travis Kelce can just dribble the ball into the ground and then hang on to it.
No, that's cool. No, that's cool. No, and guys, the thing that
it's your fault, Taylor.
Yeah, but what drove me nuts is the fact that bat was so clear. It was, as Chris said, how the hell are you going to sit there and go? I just don't get. Even the strike zone aside, because with the strike zone we can bitch about it all day, but that's so subjective and beaten to the ground. Yeah. But some of the replays, I just want to know what aren't they seeing the same angle we are? Are they not seeing? Like I don't know.
They're supposed to show you, their best angles. I mean, and I don't know, 99% of the time they seem to, like they almost always get it right, and you can eventually see.
Yeah, well, and then
Like, yeah, all right, they were
out
probably right, but there's
in
just
that
those
replay.
occasional little calls where you're like,
and that was was that the same
Yeah.
inning where Montero threw the ball away through the air at first?
No.
I don't remember.
Oh
if-
yes, on the pickoff play.
So yeah, he tried to pick off, threw the ball away, then hit the next guy, hit him,
Yeah.
and then gets out of it, including like a double play that he started. Right, like it was like suddenly it was just like snap into action, perfect throw.
Houdini.
Yeah. There's so much in that game. It was ridiculous. They kept getting these double plays, and
What I thought on that play, on that double play, what impressed me most was he took a little half a beat before he threw that ball to second. So many times they rushed that throw.
Yeah.
And he really showed some maturity there.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things we've talked about a couple times and just in the last month is that the Tigers kind of got away from like the model of like we're going to develop talent and focus for the most part on that. And there was a lot of flailing with pretty, kind of cheap or somewhat risky free agents that didn't add up to anything while they weren't necessarily like developing the guys that they want to develop. I mean, this goes to Carlos Hernandez and Luke Jackson and Dietrich Enns just kind of getting shuffled aside and Poulon because they were just flailing. There was just a lot of flailing like that. And I mean, it was kind of nice to see Kiter come through at the end and just be like, look, I've been here all along. I can handle this. Throwing harder too. I mean, I don't know what you do with him exactly still, because he's sort of like that tweener. He's not like an overpowering strikeout guy that you want, in the ninth inning. But and maybe they want him as a starter again, or they want that flexibility. I don't know, but he definitely showed something. I'll just put it that way. There was moxie on display.
So one of the things that I want to pull up the quote here, and this is what Hinch Harris said about as for the hitting. Quote, I think about the question I often found myself reflecting on is, should we have added a bet at the deadline? We had the 8th best offense in baseball across 5 months. In order to add a bet, we would have had to displace a high-performance player who helped us achieve a top 8 offense at that point. And maybe we should have. Maybe that's a fair question. I think the more pressing and fundamental question is, how does a top 8 offense for 5 months become a bottom 8 offense in September? That's the question that really keeps me up all night, end quote. That, to me, is the guy going, you know what? What the fuck just happened? Pardon my language, but what the fuck just happened? And so, like, to me, I think that, look, you can hate Harris all you want, all that, but that's the right guy that goes, you know what? He doesn't even know. Like, he looked belligerent, like, he was even perplexed by it. So, if for him, I think this is a learning lesson for him. I'm not making it, like, again, I'm not going to be a Harris apologist, but, like, if you got Mark Gurash agreeing with you, going out saying, Hinch looks smart, you know what? Mark knows a little bit about baseball. So, I would tend to agree if you make Mark, who absolutely shits on Harris all the time. Does not He hates Harris.
Yeah.
Hates Harris. He has been on record of saying that, and he went out and defended him today. You know what? You might be doing something right. And look, I look, the biggest takeaway for me was Michael, that's a good point there. Glaber's visit to the mound to talk Kiter was great. That was fantastic.
Veteran move there for sure.
Very veteran move. But the thing that I find interesting about the other thing about the presser today was just like how much they weren't giving in to the 97-1 at all. They were not going to do that, and they were just going to they expect every question. They expected it. Almost every single question they expected it.
I love Jeff, but I listened to 97.1 on my way to do fun things and just ignore baseball, and I shouldn't have on Saturday, and I just wanted to strangle everybody who runs that station. I mean, it was just like the most rage bait nonsense going on. It was infuriating. One thing I'll say about Harris though is that he again kind of characterized it. I mean, if you read between the lines, what he's basically saying is that if you wanted to get anybody good, we had to trade Troy Melton. And I just want to say, what is that? You can't tell me how good your farm system is, and at the same time, come around oh, nobody wanted anybody but Troy Melton, Max Clark, and Josue Briseño and McGonigal. What you're telling me is that Max Anderson, Hao-Yu Lee, these guys are worthless. That no one was going to give you anything for them. You got Kyle Finnegan for peanuts. You can't tell me there's nothing in the middle. it was just all or nothing. And no, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of fans wanted Eugenio Suarez. That wasn't really, a big concern for most of us, or at least not a complaint when you saw what he cost. I mean, Eugenio has a 20 WRC plus in the postseason, has done absolutely nothing. And, maybe he would, and maybe it just lengthens the lineup and all that sort of thing. But he's not, he again was exactly not the type of hitter that this team needed, for one. And that's not the type of move that they should have been making. Like, what they needed was two solid starting pitchers and a better reliever, a lefty preferably, to go with Finnegan. If they could have pulled off some reasonable facsimile of that, maybe they get you to the finish line, or at least into the ALCS. But I don't know. It's a tough needle to thread now, because they're not going to go crazy. There's not that many positions on the Tigers that really need filling, with a good player. The problem is that if you really want upgrades, you have to consider, like, okay, do we sign Pete Alonso and trade Torkelson? Are we going to say, sign Cody Bellinger and try to trade Parker Meadows for pitching or something? Those kind of juggling acts are going to be tough to find. I mean, it still just kind of looks like, well, maybe we should sign Alex Bregman, but they probably won't. And so,
or Bichette.
I don't know what we're going to do. Or Bichette too. Yeah. Sure. But I don't know if that's in the cards for them. And a lot of times those moves don't work out. The reason I wanted Bregman so bad, because he's like the one perfect fit. I don't want them to go like blow a bunch of money on, some slugger that, doesn't play good defense or something. Like, it's got to fit. It's got to be the right player for this team. But it's not a great free agent class otherwise. There's only a couple guys that are really going to be like major impact hitters.
So Robert asked if any of the AAA level prospects at the end of the year ready for the majors next year, early in the season, or maybe towards the end of the season. I mean, you're going to see McGonigal make this club out of spring training. That was basically what Sky Harris said today. I think, and then Clark at some point, Max Anderson. See, here's the thing. I'm going to ask you guys this question. What do you do in a situation right now where you have Lee and Max Anderson right now in AA? You know that McGonigal is going to probably make this team out of the spring training,
or soon.
Hinch,
it was mostly Hinch with like that coy smile, like, yeah, I'll tell Kevin, like Hinch is going to be like, listen to me, Scott Harris, I'm taking Kevin McGonigal north of me. I don't care what you think.
Yeah. I mean, Trey Cruz, Stan, I love for Trey Cruz to make this roster, but I think he's going to make an opening day roster somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you have to replace Trey Sweeney somehow with something more useful. And you probably have to replace Andy Ibanez with something more useful. Andy Ibanez in his 30s. We'll all remember him very fondly for, the wild card game against the Astros and all that. I mean,
Leo Rivas.
Yeah, he did his thing, but he's just not a useful enough player to be on the bench. And one problem Hinch had in that series was that, unless a lefty comes up, Wenzel was swinging it terrible too. It's not like there was a whole lot to depend on there. And then you can't really play Trey Sweeney. Like, there's just nothing to do with him right now. Andy Ibanez is like the second Jahmai Jones option. They could have brought Justin Henry Malloy, but all they threw were sliders, and Justin Malloy can't hit breaking balls. So, I mean, it wasn't a very, functional, optional sort of a roster at season's end for sure.
Trey Cruz will have a nice run as a Rocky.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh no, I
could see him in the Marlins for sure.
Chris and I talked about this. He's an athletic player. He's gonna be with the A's.
Oh, that's true. That would make sense. Yeah, just like a scrappy pest who can play pretty much anywhere and be functional. Yeah. I mean, I love him and Carlos Mendoza. I mean, it would be nice to think one of them would make it, because they both are just like super irritating players to play. They just don't have power, or not enough to play regularly.
I kind of see this offseason. I think Bregman, he could be like, if you want to make parallels with the 84 team, he could be a Darrell Evans type of addition. Just, the veteran leader, productive, corner infielder. That makes some sense. I can see it. But otherwise, I think they're going to add the minor leaguers. And I would bet that they chase pitching this winter.
Yeah.
And, just, add the depth, add to the bullpen. Maybe get a guy they figure can contribute once Skubal leaves in 27.
Yeah, Michael King is a guy that we've allegedly been targeting already, I guess.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing Feder get a crack at Dylan Cease, but a lot of other people have had a crack with Dylan Cease, and it just hasn't worked out.
What are you going to say, Chris?
Oh, you can't target them quite yet. They can.
Yeah, that's right. No targeting anymore.
Well, send a note under the door or something like that. But yeah, no, there is some decent pitching out there this year for them to get. It is kind of. I am curious what they're going to do with the rotation next year. I don't think they're going to trade Skubal. I think the one scenario where you do is if you get basically an MLB ready starter right now who has top of the rotation upside plus a prospect or two, right? Like a Nolan McLean who we saw with the Mets, right? Like he's already pitching in the big leagues. He's already good in the big leagues. Now that doesn't mean that he's going to be good next year, right? Like some guys show up and are good and then they fall apart, but somebody like that where you can plug in right away and then he has the upside plus the prospects. And I don't necessarily see anybody giving that up. Maybe the Mets because they're the Mets and they didn't make the playoffs and they have unlimited money and who knows? We'll see.
Steve Cohen just pounding a table. Bring me a title, mommy. I want one.
Yes, exactly.
I want a not-selling squirrel.
But so you got Skubal. Presumably Flaherty opts in. I don't know if his year was strong enough to go out there and justify any better deal than he wasn't offered last year. And you've got Mize and you've got Melton you want to make a spot for in the rotation. It was funny. Harris kind of forgot about that portion of the question and Hinch made sure to say, like, yes, he's going to be a starter. And so and then you got Olsen. You got Montero, you got Urquidy, you got Job coming back maybe at some point late in the year. You still have Sawyer Gibson Long exists. But at the same time, like they've had pitching coming into the last couple of years too, and they still have gone out and signed some veterans. And I'm curious if they do that this year, and if so, like how does that work out? Do they start the year with Melton in the bullpen?
Yeah,
I don't know.
To kind of keep the innings under control. But they didn't. I don't know. They didn't do that with Job this year. I think one lesson that will be interesting to see how they take it is that when you go to get someone in free agency, you just need to go get someone good because like the more like kind of average players you collect that you can't option down, the more just like clogged up the roster is with a lack of flexibility. You can't do things. And I mean, I listed the 50 some million that they spent on like 6 different pitchers and guys that they just couldn't do anything with other than cut. And that doesn't really suit like what they want to do. It doesn't suit their philosophy, and they kind of got caught into it because they kind of went cheap in the offseason. And I don't know if they all along thought they were going to get Bregman, and so that was just kind of like the focus. And maybe things would have all been different if Alex Bregman would have said, "No, I don't love you, Detroit. I don't want to play for you guys. You suck." Like 97-1 and Harris and Hinch have kind of like, "Oh, well, we don't want you if you don't want us." But very kind of teenage girl sounding me a little bit, but about that. But you know what I mean? Like, when it's time to go get somebody, you go get someone good because you don't have the flexibility to just like have like 6, sub-average players that you can't option on your roster.
You know what? I mean, the one thing that is clear about wanting, what people want. You know what people want? They want your data. And Delete Me makes it easy and quick to safely remove your personal data online in a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. That, again, smooth. Your data is a commodity, just like Alex Bregman. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This lead can identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But now you can protect yourself with Delete Me. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, a special discount for the listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/HIT and use the promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off, and we'll put the code in the show notes, is to go to deleteme.com/HIT and enter the code HIT at checkout. That's deleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. Hit. There you go. All right. Boom. Done.
Are we going to sign Munetaka? What's his name?
Murakami.
Thank you. I should know, being a big Haruki Murakami fan.
My guess is no. I'm going to go with no.
Next question. All right.
Considering all the Asian stars the Tigers have signed in the past, I think we'd say no.
Yeah.
You
mean Kenta Maeda didn't create a pipeline of some sort?
Oh man.
And you know what? Look. I blame. You know what? Look. I blame Masao Kita for starting this whole bad pipeline, or for that matter, the Tigers cheaping out on not signing Hidel Nomo, and then Boston went to go ahead and sign him, and he pitched no-hitter the following season.
They also didn't promote some of the fine Japanese cuisine available in Novi, Michigan, and in the surrounding confines in Plymouth. And
Yeah, that which is
Huge
becoming a
trail.
very
Huge
you know what
trail.
that's becoming a very good epicenter of Japanese cuisine. And
They did sign Brad Thomas out of Korea.
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah, that's right.
I,
It was from via Australia.
We did get Dietrich Enns, back from Japan via Korea as well. Yeah.
I would say that Murakami scares me a little bit. It's
Yeah.
first of all, he's what 250 pounds.
A little portly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you can't. We've seen Josh Naylor. Not that you can't be a good athlete and good player that way, but he's striking out like 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want to see from somebody playing in a foreign league.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't know what kind of deal he's going to get.
Yeah, he'll get something, but yeah, he doesn't really. He's not on anywhere near the level of some of the guys who come over. Yeah, Seiya and a few others.
It's he's kind of like it's like Joey Gallo style. Like he walks a ton, strikes out a ton, hits a bunch of bombs. There's a place for that. I just don't know if it's the Tigers.
Yeah,
Rockies are calling.
Yeah.
Rockies. I mean, you could go in the thin air and do some damage, but no. Nevertheless, like I said, the off season's off to like I said, there will be more of these clippets. We also put on the Tiger Minor League Report what he said about AA prospects, and that got a really rousing response to Tony Paul asked me about Jose Briseño and Tyron Lorenzo. And to be clear, I think Tyron Lorenzo, if you're going to trade somebody, trade Tyron Lorenzo. I mean,
that was the guy I think we all thought, would be the one, that might get it done, because seeing Dingler emerge this year, you don't necessarily need a catcher that badly. Of the two, I think we'd all agree Briseño is like the higher probability of hitting his ceiling as a hitter. I don't know. I mean, Lorenzo is basically you're hoping for Alex Avila, kind of like he develops enough discipline that he can hit that one, get those pitches in that one area where he murders them. But there's going to be a lot of strikeouts, and he's got work to do defensively too. Obviously, so does Briseño, and probably just going to end up moving to first base anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. Like catchers take forever. We talk about that. Like Briseño is a very advanced hitter, and if he can just focus on first base at some point, then he probably will move more quickly.
Yeah.
But he was catching an awful lot down the stretch, partially because Lorenzo couldn't or wouldn't, and
wouldn't.
And so, I'd love for them to just say, okay, just play first base, get on base, hit, do your thing. Obviously, it'd be a ton more value if you can catch, even just a little bit. If he's catching 30 games a year as your backup, and that would be great. And he may be able to do that, but it's pretty rough back there. I think he had like 4 pass balls just in the postseason.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily a problem for him during the season. It just was like all of a sudden, like, whoops.
There was too much going on.
I just think he was just fatigued. I really think.
Yes, for sure. I mean, he's playing more games than he ever played in the season. He's playing the most difficult position on the field. He's still asked to be one of the top hitters in the lineup, and he's 20. Like
Dylan Dingler is 27. It's worth remembering. Like Dylan Dingler was a good catching prospect when he was like 23, but it still took this long to like figure it all out and learn to produce at the plate at the major league level too.
And it still seemed like he tired out a bit down the stretch.
Yeah.
When Dingler was 20, he was a sophomore in college, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's a little bit different.
That's true. Yeah. But I was a little surprised that Jake didn't play a little bit more down the stretch. Just for that reason. Just because, I mean, they really rode Dingler into the ground pretty hard.
Yeah.
He really did.
Well, and there was one other takeaway I got from the presser, and they talked about it more with regard to like how the approach got away from him. And that was kind of like just a microcosm of everything that was going on with the team. It seemed like everything got away from them. Like everything they did didn't work out properly and led to them doing something else that they wouldn't normally do, which led to them doing like it was just like this, concatenation of errors, and they just couldn't pull out of it. It was like a tailspin, right? It's and I hope that they learned something from that. But again, like Scott Harris seemed just as bewildered as anybody else at why the approach and the swing and miss just skyrocketed in September. And I don't know. They got to figure that out. Maybe they started too hard in spring training. They need to take it easy this year. But
they also didn't, even when they had the lead and, we're well ahead of everyone in the division, at least for sure, even after Seattle kind of caught them for the second place spot. They didn't rest. They didn't rest Glaber. They didn't rest Riley. They just played everybody. and that's kind of weird for a team that does, show some sensitivity to load management and not just trying to like drive everybody into the ground. They kind of just did. The idea that Gleyber Torres played every game with a sports hernia or a regular hernia, like why? But why? Why were you doing that? And does that mean that you should have brought McGonigal up, or at least tried to see if Howie Lee could like function part time there with Keith or something? Like
didn't even
I don't know.
DH him.
I know.
A little.
Yeah, you're putting Keith at third. No, that was the one other thing that I don't know if many other people talked about it, but Harris did mention one of the things they want to look into is the injuries.
Yeah.
And it's something we talked about a ton with the prospects down in the minors, particularly the pitching, how everybody got injured. And I think it does feel like that they feel like maybe they're falling behind there with injury prevention in some way. And that's really tough to know, obviously. But, that's something I would be spending a lot of time this offseason trying to figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's going to happen too. And this is kind of speculation on my part, irresponsible speculation. But I think there's going to be some wholesale changes too on the minor league side of things a little bit. I think as far as development goes, because if you look down at how many injuries they had on, the disappearance of Ethel Scheffelbaum, for example, Owen Hall, Paul Wilson, it goes on and on and on and on as far as injuries have. So in terms of the Tigers' injury on that also affected them on the trade front too. For example, when Jaden Ham got hurt, they couldn't trade. If they wanted to trade Jaden Ham, they couldn't because he was, it's. But by the way, Matt goes, I need to hear Chris use the word
concatenation.
Yeah. Concatenation, instant breakfast. That's what it sounds like to me. But no, I think it's a combination of the reason why I think that is because there was so many, like the Dylan Smith thing, for example. When we're talking, Chris and I have been talking about this. Dylan Smith did not pitch back-to-back days in minors. Goes and does that and gets injured. I mean, there's a big level of miscommunication there.
Well, and all the way back, we've talked here quite a bit, like the last 2 years, about like Fetter finishing school, because they kind of get to Double-A and it just seems like not that much changes, and then like maybe Bachler tunes them up a little bit with like their command and some of like the finer points of like holding runners and do like game stuff, not so much pitching stuff. And then they come up and then we're like, okay, well now they can really tune up their stuff. And we've all noticed that that's kind of been the pattern, and that's not a good pattern. And we can go back to the 2023 draft, even like all those guys like Andrew Dunford, like gone, Jonathan Rogers, like
gone.
Jank Diaz was hurt. Zach Swanson's hurt. I mean, everybody. There's like a list that long of prospects that the Tigers spent actual money on in the draft. And for people who want to go look that up, don't look at like where they were drafted or what look what they got paid. That's what matters. And all these guys are MIA. And then we see like Jake Miller finally comes back a little bit and kind of looks okay. And then he's going to go to the AFL, and then it's. Then we kind of finally figured out, like the root cause. Like we finally figured out what the root cause is. Well, that's good. I think you're probably right that there may be some adjustments there. Like the same crew has been there since since they switched to Ryan Garco, and Ryan Garco renovated the whole system and did a lot of good things. But baseball moves quickly, and 3 or 4 years on now, Ryan Garco might need to look at some of the ways that his staff is developing the pitching and trying to get those guys healthy and build them up and make some adjustments, because it has not gone very well. Except for you, Calvis Salcedo, my boy. Good job.
Yeah, Salcedo, Sears, Elisalt, some others.
Yeah.
But,
do you see them changing any hitting coaches at the big league level?
That's the one spot where I think that we might see some turnover. There may be more turnover anyway. There are a lot of managerial openings this year, and John might finally get his job. But and it's done. I wouldn't necessarily even say it's the hitting coach's fault, right? Or it could be some analysts missed some stuff. But usually there's some sort of sacrificial lamb. Yeah, and they brought it up at the press conference and said, we haven't had that discussion yet, but I'm sure. Some of these guys will move on. It's just kind of the way it is. And sometimes you just need a new voice to talk to these guys.
Yeah, we had go ahead.
Someone's got to get left holding the bag, right? And that's just how it works in life.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love for him to go, talk to some Milwaukee Brewers hitting coaches and figure out what's going on in there. This is always my strategy. This is why I wanted him to go get, people from the Dodgers scouting department and the Rays and the Padres scouting departments way back when Al Avila took over. And Scott Harris did that. So Scott Harris, kind of realizes the advantage of like looking at what other teams are doing and trying to take advantage of that and poach some guys. So yeah, it would be nice to get someone from the Brewers or the Blue Jays hitting department, at least in the minor leagues, and see what they're doing, because something's working.
Yeah, something is working. But speaking of stop working, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back on Thursday to kind of wrap things up for a little bit. And then we're going to take a much needed hiatus, not like maybe a week or two off. We'll be continuing to do stuff during the postseason. The Brewers winning game 1. I'm going to check my email because I got an email that, oh boy. Hopefully I'm not in trouble. Yeah. So anyway, at that case, stay close to everybody. We appreciate you checking us out throughout the year. Bonus content will be coming through our Patreon and the next couple of weeks or so. Like I said, we're just getting all our ducks in a row. And oh wow, my 2 boys used to work with Brewers hitting coach David Joppy, great coach. Okay, awesome. Thank
Call
you,
that guy for us, please.
yeah. Bulls turn. If you have any, use your powers of persuasion. There you go. Chop. Yeah, chop. Well, yeah. Thanks for the season, guys. Thanks for everybody commenting this tonight, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, everybody.